there?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right, we have the legend Legalman on the phone here. He is a master practitioner of the law and my most favorite lawyer because he isn't trying to put me in prison. And he's also a receiver of numerous self-accredited awards. My most favorite is the Lifetime Achievement Award and America's most beloved lawyer. How you doing today?
There you go. I'm doing good.
So, I just have some questions, obviously, and I also wanted to go over some of the good and the bad and the ugly in the world, and maybe if you have any good news about anything that's happened in your own life or anything that you see in the world to share with the audience.
Okay. Is that a direct question to start? Do I have any good things?
Yeah. What's good,
Well,
legal
outside
man?
of my understanding is that I wasn't down for the screening of the Jones Plantation down at Acapulco, but apparently it went well, and people must have liked it, and that's good. I think it's going to be actually out in a couple more weeks. I know that Andrew's still down in, who's the director and sort of the guy in charge of all of it. He's cruising around in El Salvador, and I know they're blogging and vlogging the whole thing, and so that was a good thing. That was a good thing. I've been waiting and waiting for this movie to come out, and I think people are going to enjoy it. I'm really interested to see what they think about it, just because it's such an interesting, different kind of medium to reach people, and so it's going to be interesting. So I'd say that's a good thing that's happening.
Yes, I've been looking forward to that just because it has my surname in the title. The the the
That's great, isn't
bastard,
it?
yeah, the bastard slave keeper is Mr. Jones.
Yes,
Um,
exactly.
and so let's. Do you see anything good happening in the world, in your city, the state, the country, the anywhere at all?
I mean, I guess like Clinton said, it depends on what the word good means. I mean, I guess it depends on what you mean by good. I don't see things. I don't see things really improving much at this point. You know, I don't see people catching on. I see people getting pissed, and there's a tremendous opportunity at this point to take those people who are angry and are frustrated about what they see happening and turn them into the truth. The problem is they make sure that the people never hear the truth, and they only hear this constitutional conservative nonsense that plays endlessly in media. And so, is it good news? Well, I don't know. I mean, people are angry. Like I said, that's good. They're very primed to hear the truth, but they don't actually ever hear the truth. And a large number of the people who are pissed off, they don't really want the truth. What they want is for me to tell them that everything's going to be okay because the Constitution is there and ultimately it'll all turn out. That's what they really want, at least large numbers of them. And it's just a fantasy. It's not going to turn out okay unless something very, very major changes.
So when you say things, you're referring to the general condition of human life, or maybe just life on this planet.
I'm just saying the constant, ever progressing centralization, which means the constant loss of individual liberty that's been going on for a very, very long time, is reaching kind of a culmination here where they have the capability now. They've always had the desire. They have now the capability to both brainwash the people on a global scale, drug the people on a global scale, and to bomb and control the people with electronics on a global scale. And that never existed before. And the electronic prison doors are closing very rapidly. And once that happens, there isn't going to be another set of hard times creating hard men, which creates good times. It will be over. And that's the part that people don't get. They really think that that this is just like every other time when, sky's falling, chicken little, and they've heard it a million times. But there are very fundamental differences going on, and they're all technologically driven, and they aren't the same. It's just not the same problems that existed 100 years ago, 150, 200, 500,000. It's just not the same. And once these doors are closed and everybody's chipped, and we're all in some kind of electronic central bank, digital currency, social credit, vaxxed up world, that's going to be it. There's not going to be any way to object. My show will obviously be shut down. I'll close it down, I'm sure, years before that, just having given up and walked away. But, it's just, that's it. It's not going to be the American Revolution crap that you hear when the constitutional conservatives talking about. The people aren't going to take it anymore, all these vague phrases that make no sense. They will take it, or they'll just be shut off. It's as simple as that.
So the electronic prison basically consists of these numerous social control lever button pushing things that they have in place.
Well, I mean, they're significantly in place at this point. They just haven't fully implemented, and the basics are all there. But once you have a digital currency and they take cash out of circulation, which is the key. Everyone always talks about, well, we already have one. You use your debit card, don't you? Dude, my debit card's not tied to something such that if they don't like what I said, that my debit card doesn't work. My debit card works regardless of what I say on my podcast, or what I say on Twitter, what I say to somebody on the streets. Once they have no cash and they have everything driven through a central bank digital currency, that's all going to be linked up. And first they'll bleed it out slowly with health and safety of children and anti-terror crap. And then they'll use the environment, and it'll just slowly grow up. And then over time, different things will be categorized, no different than they have these schedules of supposedly dangerous drugs. But they just put it on a schedule, and now it's illegal. Now you can go to prison for the rest of your life if you have it, if you grow it, if you possess it, if you want to take it. They have zero constitutional right to do any of that, just like they'll have zero constitutional right to do any of this stupid crap that they're planning. But it'll be, if you object to trans and you don't like the fact that we've got men pretending to be women in the positions of government, saying something like that, they'll just bang on your social credits, which will then prevent your system from working. And then once it's even more elaborate, not only will you not be able to spend money, but you won't be able to go in certain places. You won't be able to leave your house. You won't be able to leave your block. You won't be able to leave a 5-block radius. They won't have to put you in real prisons. They'll just have it like that. And that'll be it. That's why all these futuristic movies are always fakes. They're all designed to lull the people into these fantasy worlds that there's going to be a future like that. There's not going to be. You're not going to have outlaws running around there trying to find them. It's not going to exist. You're going to be chipped. It's going to be obvious as hell. You're going to be scanned all over the place. And when you don't scan, when something happens, then there's going to be automatically AI robots and drones and everything else. They'll be right there. It's no different than in Las Vegas. Years and years ago, 30 years ago, I was out in Vegas. I used to like Vegas 30 years ago. It sucks now, but it was entertaining. That was kind of the end of cool Vegas, in my opinion. But I remember watching, there was a problem. My buddy who had a real bad temper, he was sitting at the bar, and Sean Penn's brother, who's now dead, was there. And he came up and he claimed that that was his seat. And there hadn't been anyone sitting in it. And my buddy was like, no, this is my seat. He didn't recognize who he was. And so they almost immediately started bowing up to each other, and they're about to have a fight. And before anything could happen, 5 security people who were all plainclothes mixed in with the crowd appeared out of nowhere and stopped it. And I saw the exact same thing happen on the Strip. where somebody tried to rob someone. They took something out of, tried to grab this lady's purse and run, and within 2 seconds, they were tackled by plainclothes cops who were just out there mixed in, because there's so much private security and so many police, because there's so much cash and people walking around. They don't want criminal trouble, that it just appears out of nowhere. And that's what it's going to be like in the future. If you step out of line, it's just instantaneously, you can be taken down. This is assuming you don't have a chip in your head where they can just immediately make you feel nauseous or something else. It's not going to be a matter of that you're going to resist. You're going to get resistance, and hey, have you seen them? Did you tell anyone where you were going? You know, that's all fantasies to get people to believe that something like that could exist in the future. It's not going to exist in the future. There's not going to be resistance like that. There's not going to be.
That's crazy. So I never knew that, and that's one of the reasons why I value your perspective, because you actually opened my mind up to something that I had no idea conceptually ever existed, and you bring that to the table week in and week out since the beginning of the pandemic, and I assure you that I've listened to at least 99% of your podcasts, and the reason why I admire that so much is because you were the first person, I believe, that I saw on Twitter or in any real remarkable way taking action and trying to share the truth and your perspective. So could you tell me what drives you? How do you stay motivated to do this week after week? Do you feel like it's your common or your karmic duty, or is it just, I'm curious because I'm looking for that myself.
Yeah, well, it's a mix of things, and I go up and down, and I've warned people that at any time I may just stop, but I'm not going to stop out of the blue putting stuff into Patreon, but people will know because I'll stop making it public, and I've been debating that off and on. I'm in the middle of some other projects, but ultimately, it's a combination of things. One, it's a catharsis in many ways, in that I'm so tired of it. I've studied it for so long, and it's so blatant and so obvious. And it feels good to me to know that there's other people who maybe they don't get all of it, maybe they get a lot of it, but they'd like to get more of it. I like the fact that I'm able to pass on some of the thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of time I've spent in it and happen to be positioned in. So I like the fact that there's people who are happy to hear it. I think there's also an element of not just the catharsis, and then I'm happy that, I can help some actual people who will then have interaction with, but there's also an obligation I feel to the people who come after me, that, everything I have that works, that shit was all created by somebody else. I didn't create it. I didn't build a road. I didn't create any of these foundations. There's a huge amount of information and stuff that other people have put together beforehand. And there's an obligation in my mind to tell people the truth about the situation that's going on, because there is a group of people trying to put us into a prison. And most people don't want to be in a prison. A lot of people don't care, but I'll take that back as far as most people. I don't know if it's most people, but there's a significant number of people who don't want to be put in a prison. I think that's at least a third of people do not want to be put in a prison. But they don't understand anything about what's really actually going on. And I'm a very firm believer that if you don't understand what the problem is, you have no chance of being able to solve it. And so step one is always that you have to thoroughly understand what the problem is. And the problem is big, and it's complicated, and it's very subtle. And we live in a world where there's virtually no actual information about what's going on and how the system actually works. And because I put together a tremendous number of pieces, the law being the most important one, because it's the control system, I feel like there's, to me, I still feel there's an obligation, whether I fulfilled it or not. I don't know. I probably have fulfilled most of it, but I'm in a position to continue to do it. And there are plenty of things I still have not explained to people about the way the system works. And I want to make sure that when I die and I'm looking at having to come back here, that whatever the situation is, that I'm in the best kind of karmic position to have burned off whatever I did in previous lives. I'm completely convinced I was a massive scammer in previous lives, probably many lives, probably a government employee kind of guy, because I see scams everywhere. I'm very, very attuned to them. I can pick them out immediately. And I can see the attraction of being a scammer and a criminal. Um, Had I known everything I know now when I was young, I probably would have been a criminal as opposed to a lawyer, just because I understand the mindset of saying these people have it coming. If they're so damn stupid, they can fall for stuff this obvious, then they have it coming. And criminals, intelligent criminals, they live a really good life, and they don't work very hard, and they just take advantage of people. And the world has turned into such a situation that huge numbers of people, the people who are doing the best are the people who are the criminals. And a lot of the people they're kind of these dupe criminals. They're not setting out really so much to do bad things, but they sell out for nothing, and they're not willing to take any kind of hit at all to them personally in order to uh, stop abusing people. When given that choice, they will continue to stay for the pay and the pension as opposed to stepping aside. They will continue to work for people they know are unethical. They will continue to stay at businesses they know are harming other people. And they justify it in their own mind and rationalize it in a million different ways. And, it's just completely taken over everything. And so as of now, when I look out, I don't see much justification, me personally, for not breaking the law outside of the fact that I'm not in a position, I haven't studied how to get around breaking the law. If I wanted to do that, I would have become an FBI agent and a cop, and I would have learned all the different techniques they use, and then I would have been a criminal, and then it's almost impossible to get caught. Or I would have been a crooked government official.
Mm-hmm.
But as it stands, I make the show each week because I like I said, there's a lot that still hasn't been explained. And at this point, I still believe that that group of people is entitled to know the truth. They are. The people, they're entitled to hear it. Most people reject it, but I think people are entitled to hear it.
Wow. That brings up a lot of things for me. Firstly, I actually used to sell drugs when I was younger, mostly pot and this hash, the minor ones that aren't too bad. And, I lived a comfortable life, and I was pretty intelligent the way I did it. And, you know, what got me in trouble was greed. And then to add to your point of, people are working for these corrupt corporations and institutions and governments, and they're pushing the so-called agenda forward, the narrative forward willingly, just because they're so comfortable. Really quickly, one of my friends, her husband, works for Walmart in Arkansas, and they have drones working for Walmart delivering shit already, and little like aerial UAVs, and carts that like bring they're refrigerated. So they took the model from China. I'm pretty sure. I know for sure because I've seen it. But they keep it on refrigerated or iced or whatever. So that right there is implementing, the hardest, the lowest class. I'd hate to say this, like, bless their souls, but most of the people a lot of people that could be struggling are working at Walmart. And that's already going to cut out um, masses amount of people. Like you've all said, the useless class is already beginning to be born. And then philosophy is a great thing that the human spirit has given us. And I would like to ask you about your spirit animal on that note.
Mine's apparently is Lysander Spooner. I don't really have any other. I don't know what else it might be. I love cats. I love dogs too, but I've never really. I have almost impossible for me to. I don't really hardly even remember my dreams, so it's very difficult for me to connect up with those kinds of things.
Yes,
So
tell us
I
about
don't
him.
have one.
Tell us about him.
Excuse me.
Tell us about Lysander Spooner, because this is what we're building off of. Tell us about him.
Right. See, he's a perfect example of somebody who, he did a lot of stuff, a lot of great work, and here it is, 150 years later. You can pick up his stuff and read it, and it can catapult you years and years, decades ahead of where you might have been prior to the time you pick it up and read it. And that's a similar kind of thing. I try to show people that a man like that who had integrity, his first lawsuit after he got his law degree and so-called license was to sue the Massachusetts bar, which I think is hilarious. He also sued the post office. He did all sorts of things, and that he was a man of integrity. And it's just such a low value now. Integrity has just been wiped out. The people who everybody loved, these people have no integrity at all. They have social media fake integrity. And when you bring up these people who are very comfortable, they're working. All of this stuff is enabled by the fake money system. None of this stuff can happen. Not any part of this entire giant fake system we have can exist without that fake money system. All these fake jobs, all these fake businesses, all this fake government, all this ridiculous debt. None of it can exist until you have a fake money system. And, a guy like Spooner, he got it. He understood. He spoke the truth. And the truth is just not normally very popular. But as I've said, there's really no moving forward without the truth. You're never going to be able to move forward unless you have the truth. It doesn't matter if it's in a personal relationship. Most people aren't honest with themselves about themselves. That's very, very difficult to find somebody who's going to be honest about themselves, much less honest in their relationship, much less honest in their relationship to society, much less the relationship of how their society fits into the world. They just don't think about these kinds of things, and most people are incapable of it. But the people who are all directed into this nonsense, this materialistic nonsense that everybody just kind of worships now. And it's very difficult to go through this world now. Very, very difficult. They don't make it easy. They make it very, very difficult to kind of live a life of integrity, because every single thing is completely controlled by these criminals who have this fake money. And the last thing they want is any kind of integrity. Why do you think they got rid of dueling? Why? I don't know. What do you think? I mean, it's obvious as hell, because how many people would I have shot in a duel? So many in my life. I'd be dead, or I'd be known as a man you don't mess with, because he will kill you. And I'm not hardly alone. There's plenty of men who have the balls to call it out if they had the ability. But they had to get rid of things like that. Same reason they get rid of and poo-poo vigilante justice and all this other stuff. You can't have people walking up and challenging men to be honest and to stop slandering them, or you're going to call them out and shoot them in a duel. You can't have that and have the fake system. And it's endlessly like this. We all see the lies, the entire culture, everything about it is lies. And you hear people complaining about it, railing about it, grifting it endlessly, and taking money for their so-called complaints about it on the radio and in TV as constitutional conservatives. But then you see they actually have no actual answers, none at all. And there's nothing to do except sit impotently by and be frustrated. And that's all because, like I said, you're no longer armed. People used to walk around with a sword on their side and a gun, and you didn't mess with people. And that's the way it was, and everybody had to have a lot more respect. Yeah, there were some dangers, but I'll take some danger over this fake safety where they systematically take half of everything I earn and worse, and can threaten me with anything, and I have absolutely no defense against it, I'll take my chances with some individual who's armed and got to draw down a sword on them before I will with the insanity they've created. And that's why they've wiped out all the warrior cultures as well. Can't have that. Any of these warrior cultures, they've just completely decimated those, because you can't have that kind of thing. It all has to be driven into this mealy mouth, feminized kind of, what's the old saying, the hags fags that you're not even allowed to say anymore. But that was when I was a kid. That was a saying, and it's completely off limits now. But this fully feminized culture, where the kids can be transitioned at 4 and 5 and all this other crap, it's happening by mostly women. It's not that all women are like that. Of course they're not. There's tons of women with their heads screwed on straight. But you look around, you see what's really pushing it. You see these single moms and these moms who just completely and totally dominate their soy husband. And what happens? The poor kids get screwed around. And of course, it's all pushed by the state with the civil system of the so-called divorce law, where the men have no chance, and then the judge gets to order what's supposed to happen. It's just a very complex system to unwind and to explain to people. And it's there for a reason. It's all serving the purpose of that very small group at the top who want to control it all. And they can't have honest conversations about anything, because once you do, it all starts to unwind.
So my question is how do they get at the women? How are the women so susceptible to the manipulation and the manufactured culture?
Well, I mean, they're different by nature, the same way that men are very easily stirred up to go fight in these absurd wars, get stirred up to be a so-called patriot and go over and just use a flamethrower on some dude they never even met, who had got nothing against them. Why? To fight for the country and the patriot. But it's just built into to young men. They need things like that. And women are this kind of much more nurturing side, and they want to protect, and they need a balance. And our society is just completely and totally thrown all that out for this idea that men and women are identical, and the women are just as tough and need to be in the workforce and blah, blah, blah. Just go down the list. It doesn't work. Anyone can look around and see it's causing massive amounts of mental health problems, and the people are whacking out, and there's a huge war between men and women. And it's because it's all being driven intentionally, as opposed to trying to solve problems. They're trying to create problems. It's not like the system was perfect before, but people always want to compare it to 1950 or something. It's like, dude, 1950 is not that long ago. This stuff has been going on for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, probably thousands. I don't know, because Fomenko has thrown so much doubt on the history, but we know it's been going on for at least 500 years. And so the idea we go back to 1950, who knows? I mean, women need to have children. That's a huge issue. It's a huge problem in the workforce to pretend that we can have a society where the sex that needs to have children and then needs to take care of them biologically can somehow equally participate in the business world, and then not be at home, and that you have to degrade the idea of raising kids. Look, if the woman doesn't want to raise kids, that's fine, but don't pretend you're going to be able to be this powerful businesswoman and a mother, and you're going to do all these things, and the Anjali, bring home the bacon fried up in a pan, all that crap. It's nonsense. Nobody can do it all. You can't be a tycoon of business as a man and a stay-at-home dad. It doesn't work. And they sell people these fantasies, and instead of being able to have open, honest conversations, that's the last thing you can do, is have an honest conversation. It's never possible. You're not allowed to discuss anything in any kind of honest way, ever.
It's like the number one rule, especially on the job site for construction, is don't talk about religion and politics. Why?
Right.
Because those are the most damning control mechanisms that they have.
Right. Right. I mean, they used religion for years as this control system, and now it's this absurd law.
Yep.
And most people, even the ones that do go to church, it's just kind of this soft rock music and trans nonsense that they pitch now. and it's garbage. It's not actually a structure, and it's again because of this idea that the patriarchy is this and that. Of course, religion, these organized religions have abused the living crap out of people, but I explain to people that the real purpose of church for people who could think, and I'm talking about maybe this third of the people who can think, most of the people can't, but say the third of the people who can, the problem was that if you stepped out of line in a relatively small community, even as you keep stepping up in size, for the most part, you have to go face the people in church every Sunday. So you had to go. It was if you weren't there, then you're going to have a very difficult time continuing to do business. And so when you're a low life and you're a snake, you start getting known, and you got to go face the music every Sunday. It's a lot different. If you've got to go face the music and there's dueling, you're really talking about a much more complicated situation to screw up. Now they have this anonymity and they have this fake money. And with the anonymity, the total protection of the police, where we have to supposedly go to the police for every little infraction, you have to go through the state and its corrupt legal system to solve anything. That's just taking it all away from the ability of the people in the community to police their own community. That's all essential. All these things go back to things like that. So it's not like religion had no purpose. Of course it was abused. Of course, everything's abused. Anything you dream up is going to be abused by people. We live in a world where you have opposites. That's what this world is. If you have something that's good, then there's going to be something bad about it. Everything's a double-edged sword. If you've got hot, you've got cold. If you've got good, you've got bad. You're never going to have a heaven on this planet. It's totally impossible when you have an objective world that becomes material like this. You always have both sides of it. And so to say that religion is a problem because it gets abused, everything gets abused. Everything gets abused. And so that you wouldn't be able to have anything if you don't want abuse. You can have something that's good. You can die from drinking too much water. Does that mean we shouldn't have water? It's moronic. These excuses the people give and the explanations they give for why things don't work and what we need to do, they all deal in fantasy instead of reality. And the main reason for that, like I said, is that the vast majority of people, they're not even willing to be honest about themselves, to themselves, let alone to anybody else. So it's a complicated situation. And this constant harangue of equality is nonsense. It's total and complete nonsense. There's no such thing as equality. There's never going to be any such thing as equality. And to drive that as a goal is absurd because you're never going to reach it. It's an unreachable goal because you're never going to have equality.
Wow. So I could actually tell people what equality looks like because I've experienced it. It's called prison.
There you go. There you go. See, we can have equality. Just go into prison.
I shit you not. Everyone's wearing the same clothes. Everyone gets the same meal. Everyone gets the same room. Everyone gets the same time outside. Everyone gets the same.
There you go.
So
there you go.
Exactly. And on that note, it was just I've been in trouble a lot, and I blame it on myself and my frontal lobe and the rascal nature that I have. Maybe there is some warrior left in me because I've actually, stood up for what I believed in and got in a fight. But every single time, especially this last time I got out of prison, it was just, I was kind of disturbed because I saw BLM and the term woke being thrown around. And I've read a lot of, when I read a lot of religious texts and scriptures, the Upanishads, the Bible, Quran, on and on and on, because I want to know. I want knowledge and I wanted to better myself if I could. And to hear the word woke, it's the linguistic narrowing of to awaken, or I was just like, I think we're in trouble. And I never really cared about politics or the government until the great orange overlord, the MAGA king, declared a national emergency. And I was really hoping that it would be, that it wouldn't happen, that it wasn't going to lock down, but I saw it coming like a train because I read about it in, I think, like, it had to have been November or December, and I read about the coronavirus, and it wasn't even called coronavirus then. It had some weird name, and they were trying to even name it. I remember them going through the process of finding a name that would stick. They went through several names, and then it was just crazy because I knew shit had hit the fan when they were calling it a pandemic, and I'm like looking around, I'm like, wait, pandemic? Doesn't that mean everyone's supposed to be dead and we're all supposed to
Right.
be sick and dying? And that's when I
Sure.
knew. So they were controlling the narrative then. From it was just it's so crazy to see these forced narratives, but I think they're starting to crumble. And crazily enough, I'm in Ohio right now, where
Oh,
the
wow.
yes, so it's pretty dramatic, and I don't know how to feel because I look on Twitter and I hate that war zone and all the nonsense because you're right, they just reinforce the red versus blue and all the nonsense. If you're into the nonsense, you get clout. And my point is that they want to take this train derailment, because that's what it was, and it was, I think it was a setup. Obviously, to me, I don't know, but they want to make it into a red versus blue thing. They're trying to say, "Oh, Trump took lobbying from these companies," and it's they're like, "Oh yeah,
Oh,
Biden."
yeah. Yeah, I've seen that crap too. Yeah, it's stupid. Ridiculous. As though everything was working fine before Trump. It's completely ridiculous.
It's like every opportunity people get to go at someone else's throat, and every opportunity that they get to divide people, they will, and
Right.
that maybe
Exactly.
so they can poison us and divide us even further at the same time.
Right. Sure. It's just the whole thing. They've got, when you have this basically unlimited amount of free money to use to buy people and businesses and influence, which is what they have. They've got a system. People don't understand that there's controlled opposition in every kind of area and way. They have this endless amount of people who say a bunch of stuff that's true, and then they have a bunch of stuff that's not true. And then they have another person, if you had a Venn diagram, that's speaking all sorts of truth about certain things, and then they're lying about another set of things. And if the Venn diagram, there's truth being spoken all around, but there's also lies being spoken all around. And so that creates a situation of this sort of nonlinear disinformation that makes it basically impossible for the average person to sort out what's true and not true, because they genuinely believe these sources are legitimate. And until people understand that none of these sources are legitimate, they're all performing a function. And the same function is just in different ways. They're all there to mislead and distract, all of them. And it doesn't mean that everything they say is misleading and distracting. It means that it's impossible to sort out which one they're there to do and which one they're there to cover up. And until you understand that that's actually what the media is engaged in, there's no way to ever understand what's happening around you. You'll be in constant state of confusion. And until you understand the way the structure of the system can never function the way you're told it could function with the so-called right people. And until you understand that, again, you're just going to spend all your time being very, very confused. And it's another reason, really, ultimately, that goes back to why I do it and make my show continuously. There's a tremendous value in understanding the way the system works, even if you can't change the system. Even if you can't change the system, understanding the way the system works for you individually, how to function and operate within it, you can make much better decisions, at least better informed decisions, because waking up in the wrong order is fantastically dangerous. It's fantastically dangerous to wake up in the wrong order. And in this society, the way it works is that they get you to wake up in the wrong order, and then sometimes you've gotten yourself in a position where you really almost impossible to dig out. It's not necessarily that you're dead, but now you've got so much that you have to overcome that it's almost impossible. And, you know, understanding the way the system fits together, you can choose to spend your time in ways that aren't just a complete and total dead end. And again, that to me is that holds a lot of value. And people who finally put it together, yes, it's frustrating. It is frustrating. People say, I wish I didn't know, and sometimes I wish I'd go back and things like that. And it's not really realistic. They don't really wish that, because if you put them back to that position, they'd be just as confused and searching as they are now. They would be just like they were. They would be wondering and confused. And there's a reason that you go forward and you figure out the truth, because what's going on around you is disturbing. It's disturbing at some very fundamental level to that group of people. And so once you do know, then there's a lot of peace that comes with it. There's a lot of peace that comes with it. It's once you can get to the point where you accept that that's just kind of the way it is and you have to work within it, well, then that's just the way it is. And you don't waste time wishing and thinking that it could be this other fantasy way and everything else. You just kind of accept it and move on and do other things with your time. And, you know, however much time that is, and you can prioritize a lot better.
Yeah, you focus on the good. And I was having a conversation with a lady in the steam room the other day, and she was sitting right under the steamer, and I'm like, you're gonna get boiled like a lobster. And then we started talking about lobsters, and she's like, oh, they're not very smart, they don't have very big brains. And I'm like, well, actually, I think they have a pretty advanced hierarchy. Jordan Peterson loves them. And she's like, well, they don't live that long. I'm like, no, actually, I'm pretty sure they live longer than you would think. Like, I've heard they could live up to 200 years, but I wasn't going to spout that out. Like, who knows?
Right.
But she said, sometimes ignorance is bliss. And I get the same thing from my own family. My mom, they just don't want to know. And it literally reviles them. And I was wondering what it feels like to you, if what kind of satisfaction that you've had from doing the show. Like, you've had people come to you that say, thanks, Legal Man, you really turned the light on. And do you feel a sense of accomplishment? Have you done that? How often has it happened? Have you been able to turn someone directly with one conversation or one podcast?
I don't know when it turns them, but I have had a lot of different people comment to me, send me direct messages, say things to me in Twitter, or say things to me in my Patreon. When I had the meetup, it's just, it's clear that the information I provided, tons and tons and tons of people I've never even known were following me and everything else, and then I'll see them make a comment to somebody else, and I won't even be following them, and I'll see them and they'll leave my, at US Crime Review, and they'll be telling someone, if you want to know the truth and such, and to some other person. Again, I don't know. It happens a lot. It actually happens a lot, and I like it. That's one of the reasons, like I said, that makes it worth it for me to kind of continue to make the show, is that it's like, okay, good. There are people who get it, the vast majority of whom I'll never hear from, and that's fine. But, if I can help them see a little bit of the truth, great. I know how frustrated I was the vast majority of the time before I figured this scam out, which is still ultimately the bulk of my life, because I didn't really figure the scam out until about 20-ish years ago, and I'm 60. So it's not like I lived a short part of my life understanding. It took getting the internet and then having the internet for a few years to figure it out. But I know how frustrated I was, how confused I was, how much time I spent, and then how much time I spent sorting it out over, that sort of maybe 15-year period between 25 years ago and 10 years ago, sort of sorting out all the different things, a million other things besides the law, and how satisfying it was to me to finally get to the point where I said, okay, I get it. I don't need to read the news. I don't need to follow stuff at all in any kind of form or fashion. I know the way the pieces fit together, and I know the lies that I've been told. And I know the satisfaction I get in my own life and the amount of time I save by not having to constantly wonder and be in a state of confusion and trying to figure it out like these constitutional conservative jokers on media constantly are, who they talk about how there's this and that and we got to get the right person and all. These are all dead ends. And I now know that. And it's not like the kind of thing where I think it's like that. I kind of believe it. I know it. I 100% know that I'm right. I know exactly how this system works. And I know that these types of proposals, they're never going to work. And they're not designed to work. And I know that the stuff they teach is intentionally fake. And there's no question that it's intentionally fake. And all those things that I used to spend huge amounts of time on, I don't spend any time on at all anymore. I don't spend any time at all, and it's great. I don't have to think about it, and I don't have to get frustrated and confused and look at the news and think, well, how and why and what is going on? I know exactly what's going on, and now I can spend my time laughing at it with the people who get it. It's just a lot more enjoyable to me. It doesn't change the actual situation out in the world, but it changes the way I interact with it, as opposed to being upset and imagining I'm going to be a MAGA guy and we're going to get the right people and vote and all this other stupid crap. I can just laugh at it for the complete and total farce it is, and the clown world that I'm trapped in, and the fools that surround me. And maybe that sounds cynical and bad, but for me, it's much more enjoyable. It just is. Because I'm a pretty lighthearted person for most things. I'm easygoing. I like to laugh. I like funny things. I like people who are funny. And when you're stuck grinding on this, all this crap that they feed us endlessly, the fear porn and everything else, it's difficult to be like that. It really is. And once I finally no longer had to have that fundamental confusion that nothing I was told made any sense, once I was able to make sense of it, then that was it. It's the same in every relationship I've ever had. I'm very, very intuitive, and if somebody's telling me something and I know it's not true, if I'm close to them, I can just tell that they're not telling me the truth. And if they would just tell me the truth, it'd be completely fine. But when they're not, then it causes a problem. And then I've never, ever had anybody tell me something that they were hiding from me, that the truth of what they were hiding from me was worse to me than the fact that I suspected they were not telling the truth. I've never had it. And I've had some bad things told to me. It's not like nothing. But I'm still happier knowing, like, okay, all right, well, at least I now know that makes sense. Now I understand. And yeah, it sucks, but okay, I don't have to think about that anymore. I don't have to have that program running in the back of my mind at all times, sucking down 99% of my computing power and wearing me out, wondering subconsciously what the hell's going on. There's a huge amount of relief and additional energy that's been freed up in my mind.
It makes sense, and I get the emotional currency is a thing too. It's energy in motion, emotions. It's a big deal, and when you care about someone or something, you use up twice as much. And
huge. It's huge. People, I mean, that's something I learned, 15 years ago. Spent most of my life not understanding that, poo-pooing emotions and emotional intelligence and all these things. And now I'm not going to say I'm completely reversed, but it's tremendously reversed. I use all that stuff very heavily in all business dealings. Most business dealings are really just psychological interactions. They have very little to do with other stuff. And managing people and their psychology and emotions is just hugely important. And recognizing my own, and not trying to imagine myself to be a Vulcan kind of thing. It's very feminine to have emotions and all. Everybody's got them, and they're very powerful, and they're used against us. And you have to understand that, and mastering those, and understanding that they're going to come and go, and not getting taken over by them, but not denying them. It's important, and it's another skill that we're not taught. Instead, we're taught this confused, weaponized psychology of nonsense that the kids all speak now. Anybody under 30 or 35, they use all this weaponized psychological language, but they don't actually do it. They completely and totally distort it and misuse it, and sounds very important and professional, but they're not actually doing any of it. And all that stuff, again, is just one gigantic confused ball. But boy, in a relationship, that stuff is exhausting. It tears people apart, and you know, it's very difficult to find people who are willing to be honest. It's just very, very difficult to find people who are willing to be honest. It's easy to find people who want to talk about being honest. there's tons of that. Endless amounts of people who pretend to be honest, who run around acting like they're being honest and claim that they value it. But when the rubber meets the road and they really have to get honest about the stuff that they don't want to get honest about, wow, there's almost nobody who's going to step up. It's so rare. I don't claim that I'm 100% honest. I don't think there's anything wrong with keeping certain secrets, but there's a large area of human interaction where basic honesty is required for the thing to work. It just is. And it's just, again, another thing that has been pushed aside in our culture because everybody who's running things and in any kind of media position, any kind of heroic, they're just fundamental frauds. And I think a large group of people pick up on that. They can't put it into words, but they pick up on it. They do pick up on it.
Yeah, it's like people know that there's something wrong, but they don't want to look at the shadow because they're afraid of what they'll see. And
Right.
I get so much relief just by listening to you because I vicariously experience emotions through you and everything that you say in the show, and I tell how much you care, and it means a lot to me that you've been able to stay consistent and honest and just also lighthearted. It's true, you're definitely a lighthearted dude, and I heard your cat meow, I think, in the background, and then in the other
Yeah.
show, I,
Right.
I it takes a, I think, somewhat special type of person to appreciate cats and like cats, because it's like weird. It's like the Democrat Republican thing with dogs and cats. You're either a dog person or a cat person, or maybe you just love animals. But
I love both. I had a dog for years too when I had cats too, but the dogs are a lot more trouble. They are. They're just a lot more trouble for one person to take care of it. It's a lot easier to have a dog when you have kids around and other people that can wear the dog out, and cats can kind of take care of themselves and do their own thing when they need to. But they are, a lot of people, they don't really like the cat. The cats are different than dogs. Everybody saw Meet the Parents. you know.
yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, we're coming up on 52 minutes. Is there anything else you want to say? I want to be respectful of your time, and I appreciate you.
Oh no,
Yeah. Well,
no,
it's
I'm fine. I don't really have everybody. They know about my Twitter. They know about the movie which I
yeah.
referenced, and those are the things that matter to me. Those are the things that kind of matter to me. If people want to hear it, great. If they don't, that's fine. But that's kind of the biggest thing going on right now. Is I'm really looking forward to the movie coming out. I'm
Yeah.
really, really looking forward to seeing it. I've only seen the rough cut, and I know it played down there in Acapulco. And I've gotten a couple people DM me who saw it and they really liked it, and I'm excited about seeing an actual finished product. I think it's going to be entertaining. I think it's going to be funny.
Yeah. I'm really excited too, and I'm looking forward to seeing it. And I'll make sure to plug your info on the video once I upload it. And I don't have really any massive following or anything like that, but I will make sure to.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not worried about it anymore. Trying my best, but well, it's been a great pleasure, and I hope you're doing well and have a good rest of your week. And God bless you, legal man.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, bye.
Take care.